until the first FOMC meeting in 2 months approaches, moon boys worldwide are left clutching their gumdrops in anticipation for what will move these markets in the biggest way, potentially, for the rest of the year. And with Bitcoin continuing to sink lower following in the stock market's footsteps, are the baby bulls closer than ever to extinction? Or are the moon boys preparing for the biggest switcheroo, reach-around Magoo surprise since the invention of the Capri Sun? One thing is for sure, I am strapped in and on and ready to get dumped on. My crypto portfolio is being drained faster than a keg at your sister's college parties, and tomorrow will change everything. Will the moon boys receive a long-awaited bounce, or will the baby bulls be crushed and sent crying home to their mommies? One thing is for sure, it's going to be big. Absolutely time-sensitive alert. Take advantage of over $16,000 in trading deposit bonuses below. As well, 10 days left to get free 10 USDT simply for signing up below to BitGET specifically. And that is for US traders as well. It takes 30 seconds to put an email and a password. And without any further Magoo, I'm feeling it's about time that we get dumped on. Unbelievable. Today, as the DXY for the last week has traded sideways, has gotten its biggest green bounce since the CPI print day. Remember, September 13th, a lot of things happened that day. Okay, it was a massive day. Everybody was expecting that inflation looks great. We are about to get a decent reading for the first time. Everything's lining up. These markets are going to have a nice rally. And we got 8.3% CPI reading, which was more bearish than almost everyone was anticipating. DXY massively went up. You can see this green candle. And the stock market, Bitcoin, crypto as a whole completely got dumped on. And that is really what the reality we've been living in for the past week. That happened a week ago. And now tomorrow, we will be having our first FOMC meeting in 2 months. The last FOMC meeting that we had where the rates were raised was back in July. There was not one last month. So this is the most anticipated FOMC meeting probably of the year, especially considering the fact that a lot of people believe it's possible that maybe inflation is slowing down. That CPI reading that we got a week ago did not favor that idea that inflation is slowing down. However, a lot of people still believe, maybe it's possible that this next reading we'll be getting next month will be more bullish. However, let's be honest, as long as these CPI readings are, not good, showing that inflation is not going down, how can crypto pump? How can the stock market pump? They basically can't. So as I said yesterday, there is no point in doing technical analysis on a single chart, okay? There are 4 things that are important to look at: the DXY, the SPX, and then once a month, the CPI readings and the FOMC meetings. And tomorrow is the first FOMC meeting in roughly like 60 days. So it's big. This is big news. And the markets are a little bit fearful about this. And now one thing before we continue as well, one thing that I want to highlight, first we can take a look here with the FOMC meetings, just hours until we get this September reading here. Only a few more left of the year, FOMC meeting. Only a few more left of the year. And so, this is just going to be pretty important for these markets. And at this very second, the stock market is on the verge of breaking below a support level. And we've only breached above it very, very few amounts of time over this year, this entire year. I mean, this is like a perfect chart for illustrating how much we've gotten dumped on. Right here is January 1st. And it's been straight carnage the entire year for the stock market. And we've only spent a very small amount of time in what I consider like these bounce zones. And right now, we're on the verge of breaking below this bounce zone. And we all know what happens when we break below a bounce zone or get rejected at the bounce zone, right? So we could be on the verge. Again, this is what's so exciting about this. If we get a 100 basis point hike tomorrow, as I said yesterday, expect this market to get absolutely crushed. New lows, in my opinion, for Bitcoin. I don't think that a 100 basis point rate hike is the most likely. I don't. That's not what I believe is the most likely. I, as well as everyone else, agree that 75 makes the most sense. And I do think that a switcheroo 50 could be possible. Because, again, a lot of people don't realize that you cannot just keep raising rates forever without destroying the economy. I mean, people are already suffering. Like food prices are already like, you know, for the average person, stuff is very expensive. It is hard to just live a daily life with how bad inflation is right now. And every time they raise rates, that makes it a little bit harder for people. So it's a fine balance of trying to tame inflation and also not to, and trying not to blow up the economy, basically. And so that's what we're struggling with. Now, if we get a 100 basis point hike, again, I expect this chart to do some, like, okay, this is just fantasy because I don't believe this is what will happen. But if we wake up tomorrow, if you get up and you see that they raise rates by an entire percent or 100 basis points, you know, we could see something, maybe not that dramatic, but like we will see something big. So again, this is these literally once a month, the FOMC meetings, and then, well, sometimes every 2 months, and the CPI prints are like the literal best opportunities to trade. And so far, it has been to the downside. So keep in mind, these are extremely risky, but if you are interested in trading them, these are like the once a month type events that are just very volatile. I mean, keep in mind, this is what happened when we got the CPI print last week. What were we at? 22, almost 23,000, straight down below 20,000. So anyone shorting that made an insane amount of money in literal minutes when the CPI reading happened. So again, trading that is extremely risky. So, but I mean, one side usually benefits immensely during these meetings. One side makes a lot of money and the other side gets absolutely crushed. And nobody knows for sure which side it's going to be this time. Again, what I think is interesting is that 100 basis points, yes, the market will get crushed. 75, I'm not convinced that we'll get a pump because 75 is kind of like the agreed upon level we'll get. If we get a 50 basis point hike, then obviously the markets will pump. But I don't think that's very likely either. I agree that 75 makes the most sense. However, I do think it is possible that 50 is a little more likely than 100. And I think that's for reasons that, you know, just how Jerome Powell has been playing the market a little bit, I guess. And just my opinion on reading things on Twitter in the last week. Yeah, I think I don't think it makes sense for them to pivot anytime soon, but I think, well, I think they probably should, but I don't think they will. And again, I do think it would be silly if they started to pivot and start not tackling inflation when it does not look good. But, you know, it really also depends on the next CPI print, which comes out in a couple of weeks. So for the month of September. So again, these are critical times. And right now is literally like the perfect recipe for either the biggest dump we've seen so far or a little relief rally. So really, these next few hours are insanely important, insanely just very critical, and it literally all relies on this FOMC meeting tomorrow. In my opinion, what do I think is going to happen? As I said, I think it will be 75 basis points. I think it makes the most sense. But we always have to be aware that there could be that little surprise in there that even if it's only a 5 or 10% chance of happening, if either 100 or 50 basis points is the chosen rate hike instead of the 75, the market will react extremely volatile. It will be extremely volatile. And even if we do get 75, I do think it will be volatile. Not as much as if we'll get 50 or 100 though. 100, market down. 50, market up. So you get the absolute time sensitive alerts. Take advantage of over $16,000 in trading bonuses below. And specifically with BITGET, for the next like 20 signups, and there's only 10 days left, anybody that registers simply by putting an email and a password will receive 10 free USDT simply for signing up. And then as well, there's obviously the deposit bonuses, which is up to 8,000 on BITGET and then an additional 8,000 on the other exchanges. Without any further ado, that's it for me.